Hello, my wonderful students. So now we're going to see the smallest amount of markings needed for a parallelogram for you to know it's a parallelogram. So there will be 6 different things that could be marked on your quadrilateral that will tell you right off the bat that it's a parallelogram. Okay, so you need to be on the lookout for these 6 things. Okay, although we talked about 4 properties of a parallelogram and also the definition of a parallelogram, okay, you don't need to know all those things at once to know it's a parallelogram. So if you see any of these 6 separate items, it means your quadrilateral is a parallelogram, which is super exciting. Okay, so the first thing, if you see a quadrilateral and opposite sides are parallel, that means it's a parallelogram. If you think back to the start, that is the definition of a parallelogram. That's what makes something a parallelogram. Okay, so if I don't tell you it's a parallelogram and you spot a quadrilateral of 4 congruent sides, sorry, not congruent, 4 parallel sides, bam, it's a parallelogram. Okay, so that's one of the things. So let me get back to where I was. Okay, so a second thing, if you see a little quadrilateral strolling along and both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, holy hot dog, that automatically means it's a parallelogram, which is pretty cool. Okay, the next thing, if you spot a quadrilateral hanging out with you and both pairs of opposite angles are congruent, it's a parallelogram. Nifty, right? Number 4, if you see that one angle is supplementary to both of its same side interior angles or consecutive angles, that also means it's a parallelogram. So this angle right here, if you trace it, see how it forms like a C shape? Okay, so this one is 180 minus x, and this one's x. So together, they add to be 180. And also, these two form the nifty kind of C shape, more of a U shape this time. So if this is x, and this is 180 minus x, that means that these two also add to be 180, which means they're supplementary. So if one angle is supplementary to both of its same side interior angles, bam, it's parallelogram. Pretty cool. The 5th thing, if you just see, a quadrilateral hanging out outside, and you see that the diagonals are bisecting each other, guess what that means? It's a parallelogram. Okay, and then finally, the last thing, which this is one you kind of haven't seen before. If you see a quadrilateral and it has one pair of one pair of opposite sides that are both parallel and congruent, that also means it's a parallelogram. So you have to have just one pair of sides that are both parallel and congruent. So they're parallel because they have I cannot talk. It's parallel because they have the arrows, and it's congruent because they have the congruency marks. Okay, now, this does not mean that one side's parallel and the other 2 sides are congruent. No, those are not parallelograms. Okay, those are not properties that tell you it's a parallelogram, because if you have one pair of sides that are parallel and 2 other sides that are congruent, that could also be a trapezoid, which we'll talk about that later. So you have to have one side or one pair of sides that are both parallel and congruent, not one or the other, not one here and one on this side. One pair of sides that are both parallel and congruent, which I know I've said it like 3 or 4 times, but I cannot stress this enough. Alright, and those are the 6 things that determine if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram or not. Okay, so now you need to pause the video and watch examples 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they will tell you how to identify if the following quadrilaterals are parallelograms or not. So some of these are wannabe parallelograms. They're trying to play it off like they're a parallelogram, but they are not. So we have to be careful. So in the example videos, I'll explain how we know if these are parallelograms or not. Which ones are parallelograms and which ones are the sneaky ninjas. These are the funsies that you'll get to do later in class. So you'll have to wait on that. And guess what, you guys? That's it.